Keep smiling, Pammy. We will be on in a minute.
It's all right. It's not frozen or forced.
Thank you for being patient.
No worries. You've got all the technicals. You know, I'm just sitting here enjoying life, but you've got all the technicals. So,
Pammy, a warm welcome today. Thank you so much for coming on again, for being a regular guest. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah,
and you told me not to introduce you, that everybody knows you, which in fact is largely true.
And you.
So I'm just really thrilled to be with you. And really, we're just going to chat about all things astrological and what we see is coming up and see where it goes, really. It's a co-creation, isn't it, today?
Lovely, lovely. Yeah.
So how are you today, Pammy?
I'm good. I'm still standing. Yeah, I'm good. We've had a glimmer of watery sunshine. It got up to about, I think, 15 degrees today. So, you know, and it hasn't rained. So it's been wonderful in that respect. Wonderful. How about you?
It's great. Yes. We've had thunderstorms today. It's been a little intense, but I think the intensity is building. Would you agree, Pam?
Totally. I think from now really into the rest of this month and ongoing with the eclipses, etc. I think it's going to be an incredibly intense, concentrated period of energy. And people must be so sick of me using that word intense. They must be so fed up. But sadly, I think it is because it's so concentrated, because of what's happening with the astrology and the energy. I don't think there's any way around it. Well, the way around it is to stay peaceful. That's the way around it, that you can watch the drama unfold, but internally you can stay peaceful. Because I find that, and I try and do this, you know, whenever I get a spare moment, which isn't that often, that if you just shut your eyes and drop into your breath and your body, especially if you can have your feet on the grass, on the earth, then you become present and you become peaceful in moments. And if you can do that regularly, that becomes a default habit. So whatever's happening in the outside world, you've got a kind of default place that you can keep going back to very easily and just bring your energy right back to the present, right back to peace. And these really simple free techniques, I think, are so helpful for us when things get pretty colorful out there, which, you know, because don't you think so too?
Oh, of course. Yes, we're definitely on the same page. And I love that, just dropping into your body and finding that peaceful place.
Yeah. And it's literally watching your breath, getting out of your head, stopping the thoughts, and just become one with the breath and the body, you know, just in that rhythm of the breath and the body, and gradually slowing it and deepening it. And that, you know, as I say in moments, changes all your biomarkers in your body. And how easy is that?
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's not so easy if you're caught up in a whirlwind.
That's
if you're
right.
actually caught up.
Make you, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because it is whirlwind energy, isn't it? It's very full on in so many ways.
Yes. So I agree with you. I think it's a great time, maybe in this next week, while we've still got Mercury retrograde, is a good time to just sort of practice the repetition of turning off your mind a little or slowing it down and getting into the your body, and maybe just becoming aware of your physical senses as well is sometimes a nice way of just moving into the now. So what are the aspects, would you say, Pammy, that are coming up that are aspects that are increasing the intensity?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? I mean, we've just literally last week had Pluto stationing. That magnified the plutonic energy, you know, debt, default, taxes. Look at what's happening in the US right now and all the discussions they're having. I think the debt is now $30 trillion. I heard this morning, $30 trillion. I mean, it's just monopoly money, isn't it? Yeah. And then the exact final square between Pluto and Aries just on the 9th So that was 2 days ago, but that square continues really till Pluto exits Capricorn fully in 2024. You know, it'll still be an operational square. And that, I thought, would create a lot more pushback from the people, which indeed it has. I mean, we were chatting about this yesterday, that, you know, those scenes in Rome, I posted some of those on my Facebook page today, and in many different geographies, you know, pilots in Southwest Airlines are walking out, other airlines apparently that are going to do the same, police in Victoria, in Australia, you know, leaders are falling. The Austrian Chancellor's resigned, the Premier of New South Wales, the Deputy Premier, the Transport Minister, all over corruption, all of them, which is, you know, what we expected from Pluto and Capricorn. And so I think, you know, the collapse of the old paradigm is going to be ongoing, very intense in these next few months, but ongoing really through till 2024. And that's just going to cause some chaos, because if systems aren't working properly, then nothing's going to hang together that well. You know, it may be you don't get your rubbish collected, or your pension doesn't get paid, or, you know, systems just aren't working very well. And I think this coming weekend, with Jupiter and Mercury going direct, there could be a kind of surge forwards in energy, because with these 4 planets really changing direction within a 2-week period, there's like a real shift of energy from introspection to action.
Yes, 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 exactly. And things that have sort of been bottled for a while, that have been bottling, are bubbling, and with the full moon in Aries could well pop.
Absolutely. I mean, how are you feeling looking down the timeline for this month?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's already happening. I mean, I was speaking with my Greek teacher today, Effie, and she teaches at the university. And she said, I'm being made to be a security guard. She said, before I can let people into the class, I have to check whether they've got a COVID negative test. I have to check, you know, and she said, how can I do a lesson with foreigners with a mask on my face? Yes, I'm trying to teach them Greek. And the Chinese people are looking at me as though I'm, you know.
That's really difficult, because we so often hear by watching people's mouths, don't we?
Especially if it's a foreign language, you know. So she just said it's like, as they say, we call it chaos, and in Greek it's chaos, yeah, chaos, absolute chaos. And, you know, she just says, okay, that's just how it is. And that's the systems somehow not being able to cope with new rules, new regulations. It's all confused, isn't it? There's a lot of confusion.
It is. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with all this pushback, you know, pushback of the pilots, pushback of the police in Australia. I heard today also that the new governor of New York, is going to fire 70,000 health workers if they don't have, you know, the you know what. Yes. So, you know, that isn't going to help the hospital system very much, you know, which was already under strain. So if you're deliberately forcing the issue so that people have to be fired or resign, that's a bit of an own goal, really, because that's going to, you know, that's got to come back and bite you, that the hospital system won't work that well if 70,000 people exit all at once. So that's what I mean about, and, you know, you can see it too, Bracha, very easily by the chaos and things not working very well, because, you know, the authorities are pushing things to the limit rather than allowing people free choice. And if they push it to the limit, certain people are going to make a different choice.
Yes, exactly. And that's normal. The minute somebody pushes you to do something, you dig your heels in and say, bugger off, if they push you too much, don't you? And that, of course, is the Saturn square Uranus that we are building up to on Christmas Eve, really, isn't it? It's a real...
What a Christmas it's going to be. I just heard yesterday that the UK are introducing vax passports in mid-December, which, of course, is really linking in with that Saturn-Uranus square of control, rules and regulations versus freedom. So that's going to be you know, just interesting to see how that plays out, because that's happening in many countries. So very lively. But going back to the full moon in Aries, how are you feeling that may play out? Because it is very dynamic, isn't it?
Oh, I like your use of words. Your vocabulary there is rather, you know, yes, it's extremely dynamic. I mean, especially with Pluto at the apex of that T-square.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, you know, it's Pandora's papers.
Yeah.
You know, it's all of that. And then I think it's also maybe on a personal level, what needs to come out of you? Where are you not taking your power? Where are you sort of hiding, frightened to be told off, frightened to be punished? You know, if I see a police car and he stops in front of me, I'm like, oh, you know, am I wearing a mask? I'm like, you know, all this, how frightened are we of authority? And it might just exacerbate some of that. What's your thinking on that, Pam?
Yeah, that's really excellent, because I think we've always seen authority as external to us. That's been our lifelong experience. You know, you obey the policeman, you obey the government, you obey people in authority, you don't argue, you know, we're a civilized society, etc. But I think now with Pluto in Capricorn, particularly squaring Eris, this is find your inner authority. Make your reference points inner, not outer, especially when the outer is collapsing. You know, don't hang your hat on that if it's all crumbling. So I think that's a really, really important part of it. And I think all of us are going to be called into our own truth, our own sovereignty, making our own decisions going forwards. But I think that that full moon is huge. It's strong cardinal energy. It's smack on the US Pluto. I did a whole video on the US Pluto return, smack on that US Pluto in the second house of the country's economy.
Yes.
It's also triggering the New York Stock Exchange chart. And I think October, and Americans will know way, way better than me, but I think there's some financial reporting for companies that happens in October.
Yes.
And that's why October is there. Yeah. October is very often the month when stock markets can take a bit of a tumble, if they're going to tumble at all. It's very often October, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes. And since there's been so much corruption and so much rigging in the markets, sooner or later it's got to come out. Sooner or later things are going to come out, as they are doing. Yeah, with the church, with the, you know, with everything, all the things that have been festering under the surface. Because this has been building since Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008, when we had the global financial crisis.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Yep. So, you know, we're just excavating Capricorn more and more.
But it is very instrumental. And please, everybody, do check out Pam's video on the Pluto return of the United States, because it's extremely significant, because we have the United States dollar as the reserve currency of the world. And, you know, basically they are making it worthless. They've printed 40%, I believe, I don't know if the figure's exactly right, but about 40% more currency since COVID in the last year and a half than in all the United States history.
Well, that's another own goal, isn't it? That's a magnificent own goal. You know, how to easily reduce the value of your currency at a stroke. So it's, and of course, you know, you and I both know that we're heading into Scorpio Taurus territory. The nodes are moving into Scorpio Taurus North Node in January for 18 months, but we've got that lunar eclipse happening in Taurus on the 19th of November. And Taurus, Scorpio, that's the wealth axis. Taurus is currency, currencies, banking, financial system. Scorpio tends to be the investments of the rich and powerful, the secrets of the rich and powerful around, can be sexual matters, but also finance. I think a whole ton of dirty laundry could come out at that time, big time. But again, it could exacerbate the whole financial thing. And that's going to be running, you know, through 22 into half of 23 as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think that because Uranus in Taurus and then the nodes into Taurus, I think very significantly, we have to look at what's really important to us, what really matters, and what just doesn't matter anymore that we've been chasing for, maybe financially, maybe just things that we've been chasing for that have no deeper meaning.
Yeah.
And I think with COVID, we've been really tested to go deeper and not to work at jobs that we hate and not to do things that we absolutely detest and to find other ways rather than being slaves to the system.
Absolutely. It's a revolution in values, isn't it? Uranus in Taurus, and that new moon in Scorpio in early, I think is it the 4th of November? That is smack on that Uranus in Taurus. The new moon is exactly opposite that Uranus in Taurus. So again, we're back to wealth, we're back to the revolution in values. We could be back to ecological issues, earthquakes, volcanoes, extreme earth events, because that Uranus is so highlighted. So, it's interesting what's happening with La Palma at the moment, because that's very, very active. There were two huge earthquakes, I think a 6.1 and a 5.9 beside Hawaii yesterday.
Wow.
So, the Earth's tectonic plate seems to be just moving a little bit. And that, of course, again, is Uranus in Taurus, isn't it? Radical Earth energies and events, shifts of the Earth, because the molten core of the Earth apparently is expanding, which is causing the crust to crack. Which is why we're experiencing more earthquakes, volcanoes, et cetera, or certainly one of the reasons. So, there's a lot, I think, a lot to come. Yes. And you're dead right about the values, because, just about everybody I know, I mean, there's just no interest in driving to earn a big salary anymore, because, that could be up the spout in a month or so. So it's, have you got land to grow vegetables? Can you form a network with your neighbors or farmers, or get together in a group where, they grow something and you grow something else and you swap? There's a whole collaboration community coming together here. So linking with local people, and particularly in a city that you may never, ever have done that. In London, you didn't know your next door neighbor, but, it's going to force that kind of social change, which I think is really healthy, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, what will come from this, hopefully, will be so much better than everything that we've had. It's been going on for centuries, and we're moving into this new age of Aquarius. And so this has to be new and radically different, isn't it? It's almost like, don't even try to build on anything that we've had.
Yes, absolutely. Start from zero. And I know, a lot of people now all over the world. In fact, another lady wrote to me today to say, look, I've got this vision, I've got the idea, and I've got no money and I've got no land, but, how do I do that? And they're getting kind of whispers in their dreams, or whispers from their guides or their angels to say, just trust, just do it, just trust. And that is so exciting, because for all of them, they're at different stages, but synchronicities are dropping into their lap. They're meeting just the right person at just the right time, just happens to have this very large area of land that, parents have just died or whatever. Whoops, a daisy, that's become available. So it's just magical how this is happening, but we've got to have massive trust that those whispers from the angels and guides are going to get us to the right place. So it's it's hitching our star to the wagon with massive trust that this is a whole new paradigm which works on intention, energy, vision, focus, and that is going to be how we create. Not the slog of the 3D that we've always known, but it's such a act of trust, because we've never lived like that. But for the people who are, it's just like a magic carpet ride.
Yes. And I think for others who maybe have not yet, should we say, clocked into that fast lane, just know that you're on a pause button, and it's okay, it's coming. Yeah, you will be activated when your time is ready for the actual activation. I think we're all getting activated at slightly different speeds. Yeah, it's very Uranian type of energy. Sort of, and there are lots of fluctuations in the energy. Would you agree as well?
Totally. Yeah. These surges, in the Schumann resonance, these spikes, and sensitive people are getting these surges in, migraines and tinnitus, ringing in the ears and dizziness and all, and then it subsides a little. So yeah, it is very Uranian. There's nothing predictable about it. Warmth. But often people are awakening just in a moment. They're having a Kundalini experience.
That's it. And that is the Uranian energy. And I know, you use the word spike. Yeah, but the word spike is really quite a good word in terms of how it's working. So it's almost like you're getting a jolt of something, and then you begin to adapt your whole physiology, adapts to this higher frequency.
And it really is electrical energy. I mean, I've been playing a lot around a lot with dowsing, as you know, and the increase in our collective frequency it seems to have gone up sixfold in about the last 12 months. And even if people don't feel it yet, know that it's happening. And, don't feel there's anything wrong with you. I mean, I certainly feel a long, long way from enlightenment by a mile. But, people, as you say, are getting to that point at different stages. And it might just happen in a dream. It might happen when you're walking down the street, you're on a tube or in the metro. It can happen anywhere. And bingo, it's your time.
Yes.
And nobody can predict that, because Uranus will never let you predict accurately. It's always an April Fool, isn't it? Whatever you think it's going to be, It won't be that.
It's exactly, I went to New Zealand and back during Uranus sitting on my moon. It was like, okay, here we go. But that's the kind of surprise that you get. And I think that people with fixed signs around those sort of, 10 to 14 degrees, roughly.
Yep.
So all the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo and Aquarius, are going to be especially, I feel, maybe heightened by these energies coming up with the nodes. Would you agree, Pam?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. Because, Uranus is moving very slowly. It takes 7 years to go through a sign. So, the sort of the mid areas of fixed signs are going to be really buzzed up, I think. Really electrified in all kinds of surprising ways. But its purpose is to awaken us, to shake us out of anything that's stale and routine and deadening. If we haven't made the move, it will bring external events to make the move for us. That's how I think Uranus works.
Yes.
But much more comfortable if you make the decision yourself, rather than getting a boot from the universe.
Kick up the bum.
Yes.
No, that's exactly right. Yes. And so in terms of what to do economically, and also people are asking, somebody's asked in the chat here, well, it's all very well, but planting your own food, but if you've no access to clean water, then what do you do?
Okay, great one. You can go onto many places online, Amazon if you don't hate it, eBay, lots of places, and buy a simple camping device that in the UK costs about 20 quid, £20. It's not expensive. And Lifestream is a good brand, and it literally is to go in your backpack when you're camping, and you can pump river water, stream water, literally, or rainwater, whatever, and then it filters it for you to literally give you gallons of clean drinkable water.
Wow.
So if you
fantastic.
Go onto a camping site, Amazon's got them as well, and literally very inexpensively you buy these little things, go in your backpack, and they will give you clean water if everything goes up shoot with the water.
Yeah.
But even growing things inside, they're kits where you can grow microgreens that are really have dense nutrition in them. You can do that, and they're little microgreen kits you can get. Even that, and have things like barley grass, which you were talking about to me, and concentrated vitamin C. There's a wonderful wild harvested blueberry powder you can get, completely organic in a powder, incredibly dense, high amounts of vitamin C. So, if times really, really get tough, and none of us know if they are really going to get tough, but if we have electricity cuts, which I think in Lebanon's had no electricity for 4 days. So it hasn't been possible to cook anything for 4 days. So what food have you got at home that is long dated, that you would love to eat anyway, in jars and tins and dried food that you can still use if you've got no power? or get a power pack for a caravan, you know, little power pack that we were talking about, Bracha, for a caravan or a camper van, a mobile home. They're, you know, they're more expensive, but if you really feel it's going to be dodgy, because what could happen, as we know, with all this Uranus energy, the sun is throwing out a lot more solar storms and coronal mass ejections. If they throw out a big coronal mass ejection that is Earth facing at the time, whichever geography is facing the sun, their power grids could take a hit. So again, it's going to be impossible to predict. I'm not saying that will happen anywhere, but it may. And wouldn't it be good that you had something to eat at home so you wouldn't panic? Rather than thinking, eek, you know, I've got nothing to eat at all and I can't cook, you know, for as long as this lasts. So just over the months, and I've mentioned this to people, and this isn't to cause any panic. It really isn't. I mean, I remember living in the north of England when the winter was coming in. We had to prepare for the winter because the village would be cut off for about 2 months every year, which I loved because I didn't have to go to school. But every winter, you know, the family would prepare and, you know, we didn't have freezers that were extensive at that time, so we'd wrap potatoes and apples and pears in newspaper and put them in a box very, very dark somewhere, and that would keep the potatoes and apples through the winter. You know, it's going back to how your granny used to preserve things, in preserving jars, Kilner jars. And again, I'm not wanting to create panic. I'm trying to do the opposite of that, to say, and I know you've said this to your people too, Bracha, you know, plan quietly, and then there'll be no panic. You know, you've got something to eat if the power goes off for a day, 2 days, 4 days, you know, who knows how it's going to work.
Yeah. And also, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, plenty of blankets, warm things, warm clothes. Just do as much preparation as you can without it becoming a stress, because it does look as though with Uranus in Taurus and the nodes, it looks as though there may well be temporary shortages of, as we've said all along, maybe certain products, certain foods, certain electronics. So just have backups, have backup parts of things if you can, because they just might not be as easily accessible.
Well, that's happening here already. You know, we had the petrol crisis. Well, you know, it's media induced very successfully, petrol shortage. And that meant that there weren't enough delivery trucks that had petrol in them to get the food to the supermarkets. So supermarkets have been running, you know, very bare on the shelves, and deliveries weren't able to be made that, you know, regularly would have been made. So, you know, that's all kicking in here already. And, you know, the media just has to mention it. You know, there's going to be a shortage of toilet rolls, and bingo, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy. Hey, presto, we have no toilet. So, you know, these things are going to happen. And again, just be prepared. You know, have you got a bicycle you can ride, you know, to the local shop?
Yeah. It, as you say, just little by little, make certain preparations. Yeah. And that doesn't have to cost very much. And it should not be done out of a panic. But it is just possible there are going to be some bumps over the road during this winter. And astrologically, it does look as though there's quite a big improvement around April, May of next year. Would you agree, Pammy?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, as long as the floods don't get us.
I know.
Anyway, ignoring the floods, but no, I do think you're right. I do think the astrology eases up from the kind of cardinal intensity that we've got for, you know, starting now and really into about March. I think it starts to ease up a little, because, you know, we know that sort of early next year, well, last winter, Mars was in its own sign of Aries for 6 months, squaring the Capricorn planets. Now, Jupiter and Saturn have moved out of Capricorn, as we know, into Aquarius, but Pluto is still there. Mars comes to join Pluto in the early months of next year. So it's like the same thing again with Mars-Pluto. So this is very forceful. It can be militaristic, can be quite brutal in terms of power, but that eases off, I think, as we get into second half of March. And, you know, if we go to that beautiful big bubble, big mystical bubble of Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces.
on your sun, Pammy.
Yes, I don't know how that was. So I'll either drown or have a mystical moment. But yeah, so I do think the astrology eases up a bit. It gets a bit kinder. And while Jupiter is moving through Pisces, yes, we may see more flooding because Pisces is unlimited water. Jupiter's the ancient ruler, Neptune's the modern ruler. They're both in there. So Jupiter expands the unlimited, so the unbounded water. So it could be that, but I think it will heighten people's intuition massively, don't you?
Yes, totally. And we just have to watch. Who are we having faith in? What is your faith in? Yes. What are you believing in? There could be a massive sort of change in a belief system, in the way that we see the world, in the perspective of our connectedness, maybe, as you say, a mystical moment, mystical change, and really getting how connected we are.
That's really lovely, because of course that could also be illusion, disillusion, disappointment in your belief system, Jupiter, the whole caboodle, to bring us together more. So, many more of us realize actually now we're all on the same page, with the same views. I think
we're more on the page than we realize, because what the powers that be have been, shall we say, it's the old model, this divisive model between us and them, they're doing this, and really to exclude a certain portion of society for whatever reason, of color, or there's always been that. And maybe this is just, in a sense, an enlightenment of that we're actually all together, and let's not create any more us and them.
Yeah, because Pisces is all about oneness, isn't it? All about oneness, that we are all a drop in the ocean, in the Piscean ocean. And with the modern ruler and the ancient ruler there, that could be really uniting, and uniting at a kind of higher level, a spiritual level.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And really, and seeing that, that water, the vital energy of water, and the power that water holds, to destroy us, Noah and the flood, and the power that it has to create life.
Absolutely. And we're gonna have more water issues. But as you say, Bracha, I think we're going to understand more about water if we look at the wonderful work of Masaru Emoto, and how if you send hate to water, the crystals become very distorted and ugly and asymmetrical. If you send love to water, you get these beautiful symmetrical crystals. So, and we are mainly water. Our bodies are mainly water. So we're going to understand the energy of water in a much better way.
I feel that this also, the frequency of flow, I think this really brings us into, you as a Pisces, I think understand that very, very well. Yes, I think well, it's natural for you, especially with sun and moon in Pisces. So you have a natural ability just to somehow flow along, really. Sometimes, would you agree? You do.
I hope on a good day I do. I think my Mars in Aries can sort of get in the way a little. But no, thank you. That's very generous of you. And Bracha, it's interesting what you were just saying there about, sections of society being excluded, because I was looking just today, in fact, I wrote a Facebook post about it, that because we're in this square of Aries to Pluto, and they're both incredibly slow moving, Pluto 246-year orbit, Aries 560-year orbit. I look back to the last conjunction, which is when these, astrologers always look at when these cycles begin. And it was in 1756. And then they were still burning witches at the stake. So here we have a sector of society, and Aries has this female awakening, the female side. So we have a sector of society that is vilified, that is dangerous to society, that's unclean, and so they have to eliminate them. And I thought that was incredibly interesting. There were a lot of food riots at that time, Aries, street protests, a lot of food riots, a lot of hunger at that time. And then when you move to the opposition, I think it was the first square. Anyway, every time you look, there was a big surge of protests, like the suffragette movement, then feminism, Strong
Wow.
female theme, and the first UK female Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and now we're at that waning square. So, similar themes about the exclusion of suffragettes, the women in total felt excluded from voting. So what will it be now? Will it, because I think it's almost that we're recognizing the shadow side of the patriarchy, the masculine. So it isn't so much that it's the female side, it's almost like the divine feminine, Eris hates inequality. So I think she's going to bring in a much greater recognition that everybody has to be, that there's no racism, religion, medical choices. Everybody has to be heard and have a voice.
Yes. And no more censorship, no more, this is all right and this is not.
Yeah.
We know that everything's out of balance. Okay. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that things are tremendously unbalanced right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're dead right. I love that you brought in that history. That's fascinating with Eris.
Really interesting, isn't it?
1956. That's fascinating. Yeah. So we're probably going to be seeing more riots, more protests, more of the people saying, no, this is not what we want anymore. Yeah, we just don't want this. And if this is what you want, then people power is going to show you that we are the 99%.
Absolutely. And this Aquarius energy, isn't it? The power of the people, because there have been huge protests, as you and I have discussed over the months, on the streets, cities all over the world. But now it's employees of companies. In Southwest Airlines, apparently the union are taking the management to court over their mandatory, medical invasion. So it's becoming organized by company, not just by big geography. So it's taking a different form, because there are a lot of legal cases happening at the hundreds of legal cases that you don't get to hear about in mainstream news. And that's been very much the Libra energy. And a lot of them are starting to come to fruition that might change things as well. So, there's a lot that's huge stuff that's happening behind the scenes that if you only watch the nightly news, you are never going to be aware of.
Yes.
Step one, turn off the news.
Yes.
The frequency will double in a week.
Absolutely. And step two, don't be pushed. If you're feeling an urgency coming at you, either that, that you're fearful if you don't do something, or because that's why I think we've been careful today, say, yes, there may be food shortages, but don't do this fearfully. Do this with a clear head and say, okay, I'm preparing for a cold winter. And what do I need to do for this? So you are preparing. That's what you're doing. And if you can be prepared, then you have more equanimity.
Yeah, you're more peaceful. I bought a little one-ring camping stove, and I may never, ever need it. Or my little, pumping filter thing for river water. I may never need it. They cost me, so little. But if I do need them, they will be priceless.
Exactly.
If
lanterns, little LED lanterns, a few candles, just little things.
Yeah.
That everybody can do very inexpensively. But what I'm seeing is that if you get a sense that you're being pushed about anything, you have to make a decision to buy this car at this price now, or let us know by tomorrow, and there's a push at you, stop. All right, that is very much the energy I feel that we just have to not push back necessarily, but not be pushed around.
Yeah, huge. Stand in your sovereignty. That's Pluto and Capricorn, the inner authority. And, if you are in an organization that is pushing you to do something you don't want, you will not be the only person who doesn't want to do that. There will be many of you. So form a group and, decide on a plan of action, that kind of thing. I've heard there's a very wealthy chap in Germany who was bought a disused hospital, and the nurses and doctors who are, taking different decisions, he's apparently recruiting them to, so starting up an alternative, alternative system. So yeah, it's very interesting. And just to reiterate, this is not to create panic or fear, just for very tiny amounts of money, you can feel peaceful. You can feel, I can get clean water, I can heat up some porridge, on my little, really minimal amounts of money that you might be just so great. And Bracha and I are not saying this will happen. We don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. It's the time
we
of
really don't know. Yeah.
Look at Lebanon right now.
Looking at what is appearing, what we've been seeing really since 2008, actually, this whole financial situation. And at some point it's going to break.
Yeah.
It's just a question of when, and it looks as though it's quite imminent.
It does. I don't know what's happened with the debt ceiling in America. I haven't sort of caught up with that in the last day or so, but I know there's the Congress has to raise the debt ceiling, and at $30 trillion. I mean, it's just eye-watering, isn't it? So I don't know if there's a decision date on that. Do you know, Bracha? You may be.
I thought that they had already allowed it for the next couple of weeks. They sort of staved it off a little. I'm not sure. I haven't read
until about the 20th
yet.
Until about the 20th.
I think so. Yeah, until around the 20th. Yes.
I don't know what the actual date is, but
Yeah. But yes, somebody's here saying, Stephanie's saying she's very appreciative of the warnings because she had food and water backup when she had a hurricane. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Good.
So,
good.
Really, this is just really, the astrology is just like a weather forecast. It's nice to know, gosh, thunderstorms are predicted for today. Let me take my brolly.
Exactly. Yeah. And when I was a child, we knew we were going to get snowed up for, village cut off for 2 months. So what did we do? We prepared in an old fashioned way.
That's all the same. And hopefully it won't be so bad. Won't that be great? It won't. Yeah. But I always remember better to be a year early than a day late.
Yes. And buy food that you would eat anyway, that you love,
Yes.
Depending on your diet, have nuts in the house or whatever. It's a long date, or, if you have got a little means of cooking something, buy lentils or chickpeas, pulses, that kind of thing. You can do all kinds of things with those to add herbs or, you can always find a way through, and they're quite good protein as well.
Exactly.
So there are lots.
So, it's not difficult. And with barley grass, for example, a kilo or two of barley grass will probably give you enough protein and nutrients for about 6 months. Wow. If you couldn't get fresh veg.
Wow.
Let's say you couldn't get fresh stuff for a while. Yeah. So, that's just powdered. You just got to add a bit of water.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I do know someone, I haven't started to do it myself, but I do know someone who grows microgreens. And they say it's really easy because if you grow it in the house, the temperatures, even if the electricity goes off, it'll always be warm enough for those to grow. And they are really nutrient dense. So I think I'm going to investigate those. It'd be quite fun to do as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. So there are many things if you can make this a little bit like an adventure. I know for some people it won't be, okay? For some of you it'll be like, oh, a nightmare. But for some of us, I think it's, quite a little adventure to put some of these things together and have a bit of fun thinking about what you would do if there were alternative things creative things that you needed to come up with. I do suggest that with any valuables that you get a fireproof bag and a waterproof little bag. There are little things you can buy online. So anything that you've got that's important, just buy it, and they're very inexpensive. So
all good plans. And if you're growing anything, send them love. Whatever you're growing, send them love, because apparently any vegetables or plants you grow, they absorb your consciousness, which is wonderful, isn't it? So send them love and they'll grow better. I think I've even seen side by sides of people growing mustard seed as an experiment. And there were 3 lots. One lot people had to send hate to, the other ignore, and the third sent love. And the difference in the growth pace of those mustard seeds was just incredible. And this is all invisible energy, but that's kind of evidence to me of how powerful energy is. Yes. In a short
totally. And somebody's here saying that sprouting the seeds you don't need soil.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, somebody's saying this in the chat. So, I think there are all kinds of things that we can investigate that could be easy to do.
Yeah, and quite fun. Something, you've never done before. I think it'd be quite fun.
Something different. So, gosh, we got onto that. But I think when we think about this whole energy of Uranus in Taurus, it's very much being able to deal with bumps in our systems to do with our survival.
Yep, and Taurus is about survival. It's also about food distribution systems, isn't it? Agriculture, food supplies, all of those things. So Uranus sitting in Taurus kind of says to us, there will be disruptions, and there are in the UK.
The shelves in Greece too. Yeah, I mean, all over. I think a lot of people are experiencing that. So, that's really what the astrology shows. Uranus is in Taurus for a little while yet.
Yeah.
So, but equally, I think that we might be using technology in very innovative ways to grow things more effectively, more easily.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because apparently in some big warehouses, they've got kind of vertical farming. And what they've done is shine different colored lights on different vegetables, because different vegetables thrive with different colors. And so they optimize the growth of those particular vegetables, which is, very Uranian, isn't it?
Beautiful, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah. Really
and of course, this is also an opportunity to connect with beings and energies from different
planets.
Yeah.
The galactic. Yeah, I think the galactic will become increasingly strong. I mean, you channel Palladians, there we go, yeah, we have it, but more and more people are channeling galactic beings, aren't they? And I think that will become much more of a common ability as we move forwards. And I think the jumps in our superhuman abilities are going to be quite rapid. We're not necessarily looking 10, 20 years down the road. We're looking at kind of weeks and months of rapid acceleration in our abilities.
Yes. And I think we're getting new wiring to our bodies.
Yeah, very much so.
New an access to heightened senses, Taurus ruling the senses very much.
Yeah. And you would be feeling that moon in Taurus. You would particularly feel that.
But, I think we are getting more sensitive and sensitized around food, around what we're doing, around what we're doing with money, what we're spending the money on. What's it going on? What's money going on?
I think that will change radically as well. It will be much more with the North Node in Taurus, much more into the fundamentals. But, there's something lovely about Taurus that pulls us back to the simple. Yeah. It pulls us back to the natural rhythms of the earth. Maybe it's biodynamic farming, where you're planting by the rhythms of the moon. The moon is exalted in Taurus, so for you, it's in a beautiful place natally. But it's getting back to the simple rhythms and the old-fashioned ways. So it's going to be an interesting mix of new technology, but also respecting the old-fashioned ways of doing things.
I love that. It's the mixture, and also using the rich information that we get from our ancestors who knew so much.
Yes, way smarter. We just thought they were kind of prehistoric, thugs and, had lumps of rock, but they were so advanced. We are children compared to the wisdom and the knowledge that they had way back. If you look at the Egyptian pyramids and, and the sophistication of those civilizations, they're way ahead of where, we wouldn't even get into kindergarten now.
Yep. No, this is great, Pammy. No, I think so really it's a matter of holding on to your hats for the next few months.
Yeah.
Staying as balanced as you can. Pressing the pause button, not being pushed, knowing that things are going to be intense and chaotic, making preparations best you can. What else is on your radar here, Pammy?
I think also, that the good thing, it's reassuring for people if we as astrologers say it's going to be rocky. Yeah. Because they say, okay, And, because it's the breakdown of the old system, that's not going to be smooth and comfortable. It can't be, because you've got a system which has been going on for thousands of years in a particular paradigm that's coming to its knees incredibly fast. I mean, really fast when you think of the scale of time where it's been operating and dominating. And so, but understand that it's a breakdown to break through. And if Bracha and I can see slightly sunnier, possibly wetter, but slightly sunnier times on the other end, easier times astrologically, then, take that as reassurance. And, I don't know how you feel, Bracha. I don't feel everything will be over by any means by next April, but I kind of feel that the worst is what we're going into, the most concentrated, the most intense. And yes, there's still lots of lumpy bits and rocky bits, still got Saturn Uranus square next year, still got Aries Pluto square next year, but not exact anymore. So it will still be a challenge on value systems and money and banking, so all of that. But I think that the toughest time is these next few months, which I think you think too, don't you?
Absolutely. But in many ways, I think a lot of the tough things are behind us already. We've been through the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of last year.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the real whammy. Yeah. That January the 12th.
Yeah.
Really kicked off a lot of stuff. And now I think many people are just growing. I'm seeing people grow spiritually, grow in their power, grow in their saying, I'm not having any of this. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not, and really, I'm seeing a different energy coming in terms of values and importance, with many people now saying, hey, yeah, this is an opportunity now to create a very different life for myself. Yeah.
And it's very empowering, isn't it? Very empowering, very exciting. And that new Earth is already here. I know people who are living in new Earth. They're living it. And that grid of light around the Earth is already here. So it's not we're looking 10, 20 years down the road. It is here now.
Exactly.
And if we can master our frequency, we can step into that today,
Absolutely.
right now.
Absolutely. It's right. The doors are wide open.
So it's only at the 3D level that things are going to be so challenging. At higher levels, as you say, Bracha, this has already happened. This has already happened energetically.
Yes, exactly. That's what you've been saying for a while, Pammy. So, excuse me. Yeah. Wow. It's so lovely to talk with you. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to add? Here.
I think just sort of staying on your eagle's perch, because I think that full moon in Aries is going to be a hot full moon. Yes. Full moons, as we know, bring things to a head, a crescendo. There's a lot of Mars Aries energy because the sun is conjunct Mars. The moon is in Aries, conjunct Aries. I mean, oof, that cannot just, go smoothly by without some significant events. It may well be financial. It may well be quite warrior-like in some way. We just don't, as astrologers, we never know the actual events. We can just see the energy and the timing. But I think it's a pretty hot full moon, and it's very much aspecting the chart of the US. It's interesting. As we get into November, China's chart becomes much more activated as well, and Israel's, interestingly.
Yes. Especially with the nodes as well.
Yes.
So we'll see the Middle East, we'll see China, we'll see the United States for sure. I think a lot of things kick off in the United States. The United States is the place to watch. Yeah, it really is. I think what happens in the US is very much going to affect everybody else.
It is, absolutely. I totally agree with that because, all the economies are connected, the markets are connected. I also think with Pluto in Capricorn, there's going to be a lot around constitutional issues, governmental issues. Does everyone have a legitimate government or not? And if so, what are the consequences of all of that discussion? But I think constitutional matters, big time in the US, but pretty much in any country you look at, they could come up because this is global. Pluto and Capricorn.
Look at Poland. Look at Poland now with the EU. We might have another exit coming up.
Absolutely. And because Pluto is grinding its way through those last sort of from now on 5 degrees of Capricorn, it's got to do its job in excavating corruption of top-down organizations, top-down people, governments, leaderships, corporations that have not had integrity, clarity, transparency, accountability. It's going to dig those up. And that's, again, a very concentrated period of time, really.
Yes, yes. So in a way, it's like we're getting a lot of things done quickly.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's not going to be dull. It's not going to be dull. It's going to be quite lovely, but just stay on your eagle's perch. Don't be swept up in the negativity and any fear. Just say, yeah, I know this is, I listened to Bracha and Pam, and I know this is meant to be happening as a process to get more of us into New Earth. Yes. Just say that to yourself.
Fantastic. I love that, Pammy. Thank you. Yes.
Just focus on the other end of this. It's not going to be all done by next day, by a long way, but just focus on that we will see more green shoots of New Earth by then. That's my feeling.
Yes. And it's already happening. You're seeing that in the UK already, aren't you, Pammy?
With many people I know, I'm seeing, many groups getting together, self-organizing into little working groups of common law, homeschooling, growing vegetables, they're coming together with their knowledge, natural medicine, homeopathy. They're coming together in little working groups where people have knowledge and then feeding it back to the whole group. And this is Aquarian energy. This is grassroots up. This is people's councils, assemblies. We're done with top down. That doesn't work very well. So it's happening already now. Many, many, many groups that I'm aware of in the UK that are all forming a network now, linking with each other so that they can. What are you doing that we can learn about? Oh, you've got a foraging expert. Oh, well, that's all for free. Mushrooms, wild berries. Let's learn from So the knowledge is, we're developing a knowledge network and a light network.
Fantastic. Just one thing here, Pammy. What's your thought about this whole thing with the cyber attack or the cyberspace here? Because that too looks quite vulnerable, doesn't it?
It does. And again, we're, back to Uranian energy, aren't we? Because Uranus rules the internet. Uranus is unpredictable. Uranus is being very highlighted. It's very highlighted at that new moon in Scorpio I think it's on the 4th of November. So, at any time that could happen. What I understand, and I haven't got any facts on this, but I understand there's some kind of alternative internet that's being built.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, there will be alternatives. That's the one wonderful thing, is people get very creative during difficult times.
Yeah, they really do. I've been astonished at people's resourcefulness and creativity in such a short time. I think I'm so proud to be part of the human race right now in many respects because of our resourcefulness.
Absolutely. And I think, many people are waking up and saying, hey, wow, look, I could do this. I didn't know I could do this. Let me try this. Yeah. And try things for yourself. Whatever you're drawn to do, why not learn it? Try it. Just test different things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you feel, Bracha, about the whole cyber thing?
Well, I think that we may have some choppiness. I think issues of privacy are going to come up. And I think that we might need to sort of start thinking about what needs to be private and what doesn't need to be private. And what are those lines again? And again, as you said, Pammy, we've got to keep things simple.
Yeah.
We have got laws and regulations that are just to the yazoo with complication. People can't understand half of the things that are going on.
That's why it's good not to watch the news, because if I was ever stopped by a policeman, I'd just say, I haven't watched the news for the last 20 months. So sorry, I haven't got a clue what's going on or what the rules are. Sorry. It's always that. But also you can get free VPNs, virtual private networks. For instance, I got one from Proton Mail, completely free. You download it and, that keeps things private in terms of your location.
Yes. So what I think is that, once again, this Pluto energy is here to show us that we are not to be disempowered.
Yeah.
We are not to be victims anymore.
Yeah, well said.
right?
Well
You know,
said.
it's not about being bullshit and saying, oh, you know, up yours and stuff. No, that's not the energy that helps. But let's try this. All right. Can't do this, but we'll try this. What about that? Haven't thought of that, have you? You see, and it's like, but it feels great. It's like, you know, you sort of say, right, we're on the frequency of what Eckhart Tolle calls, you know, enthusiasm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
excitement.
it's that sense of it. That's how I feel whenever I speak with you, Pammy.
Oh,
yeah?
bless. Well, similar.
We have these great chats as well, don't we, when we're not live and online, but you know, it's just exciting when you have somebody, even if you're miles away, but you can connect. That's why this soul community is lovely. I'm hoping that people feel uplifted, as though there are alternatives, that you always have options.
Yeah.
And that you are not being pushed into a corner.
Yeah.
And I think that is really important right now for, you know, just look at what other options are there? And what else? And what else? I had a counselor who did that with me time and again. I hated her for it at the time, but boy, you know, now it really does make me think, okay, right, well, that doesn't work, but what else could I do? Yeah. So.
And when you're in a group and many people are doing that, that becomes even more powerful because you're getting such a whole melting pot of ideas.
Yes.
You know, people are bouncing off each other. Oh, you do that? I didn't know that. Oh, well, I can do that. Well, we could, you know, start a little business, you know,
exactly.
And off it goes. So,
and I think we're very privileged to have Zoom, to have this internet, yeah, whereby more of our individual skills and ideas and abilities, because everybody's got something. I don't care who you are or where you come from. You've got something special. You have. You might need to dust it off. You might need to dig it out. Yes, but you've got something.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And to know that you're here for a reason and for a purpose, and especially at this time.
Yeah, totally. And this is when our creativity, our resilience, our resourcefulness really, and you know, that's part of our empowerment and our sovereignty as well, discovering how much you can do.
Yes.
And it's all part of this Aquarian energy of coming together and the excitement, really. You know, you don't have to go to a restaurant or a big public venue or just coming together in community in the middle of a field is so exciting. And it's so simple, that human connection that we, it's quite interesting that through lockdown, we so missed that just real, genuine human connection. And now we appreciate it more than ever. So that's been a bit of an own goal as well, actually, because we just love simple human, another one, simple human connection.
Yes.
Yes. And we're going to value that more than ever. Love our friends, love our, close people. And that is how New Earth is going to blossom.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that if you just keep that in your back pocket, that you are not being pushed into a corner.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think there are people around who are feeling in some way pushed into a corner. Think of something else. I mean, I have a friend, her husband, he's been working in Greece as a helicopter pilot, rescuing people from the islands and taking them to hospitals on the mainland. And he just wants to have his free choice. And so he's been sacked without any money at all. And he's worked for them for like 20 odd years, a long time, I think 30 years or so, quite a long time. And, but he's finding other work. He's finding other things he can do. Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal and it's not necessarily the easy option. So where are you taking easy? And it's this Saturn Uranus energy, isn't it? It's like, where are you sort of conforming and saying, okay, I will limit myself because it's a limitation, but I'm not liking this one bit. And where are you saying, all right, I'll break out and I'll try something different.
Because you won't be the only person that's doing that.
Exactly.
You know, there will be others either on the internet or in your local area that are doing that. And, you know, if we conform, which is what we've done so obediently and dutifully forever,
Yes.
if we conform, if we look down that timeline, does life start to get smaller? Whereas if we're looking down the other timeline, things from a very small beginning start to expand.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I mean, I used to work in television, right? People used to say, oh, you know, how wonderful you work in, I worked at Granada Television, you know, coronations. I know, do you know, it was the most miserable 2 years of my life. I was so miserable. I used to come home crying nearly every day. I just hated what I was doing there, but I did it for the prestige, for the money, for the all reasons that came externally from other people telling me I couldn't make a living at the things that I really loved.
So sorry,
no, please.
So isn't that interesting? You know, if we're, you know, this is Saturn, as you say, versus Uranus, Bracha, because if we take the choices out of conformity, I think because Saturn represents limitation and contraction, there's a continuing contracting energy with those choices, whereas Uranus, always as the planet of the future and the planet of shake-up and the planet of awakening, wants to free everything up in a chaotic way. It's always a mess, in a chaotic way, to say, okay, what can we create that's totally, totally new? And that's a very expansive, it's an unpredictable, explosive energy, really, but it's a much more expansive energy than the Saturn timeline.
Yes, yes. And something came up for me. Somebody saying you feel like that now. Black Butterfly is saying that in the chat. I'm sorry that you feel that way now, but I was mobilized. It was like something else has to be out there for me. And in the end, I got a scholarship and I did an MBA. There were all sorts of things that opened up. Once I got clear, I know I've got a strange history. But so have you. In many ways, we both have. So we've taken circuitous routes to do what we really love. And I think what's being tested here now, many jobs are going, okay? And it's an opportunity now to follow your heart, the longings of your heart. I'm reminded of The Alchemist. I'm listening to that at the moment, re-listening, Paulo Coelho. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Listen, that heart won't stop getting at you. It will contract if it thinks it's going to get hurt again. So it keeps contracting at the worry of being hurt. But if you give your heart permission and you say, just call to me, tell me where I'm supposed to go. Your heart will guide you and you'll get signs, you'll get information along the path that will show you. Would you agree, Pammy?
Yeah, totally. And this is the time, this is the whole message of Saturn versus Uranus, isn't it? Saturn square Uranus. That's the whole message. If we've got to break the old to get to a higher level, because Saturn is the past, Saturn is the old, Uranus is the new, Uranus is the future, and it's going to be galactic. I mean, it literally is going to be galactic. We are stepping into becoming galactic citizens, which sounds completely wacky, but I mean, Bracha's channeling the Palladians. You know,
well, you're dowsing away and you're doing brilliantly. She's dowsing the frequency of the planet, for goodness sake.
And that's dead simple. You know, show people how to do that on a video.
It's extremely, and so, you channel your books. But yeah, we are, it's a massive shift out of being slaves into being free. And there's this Saturn energy that was kicked off by COVID, no question, Saturn, Pluto, and we're still under this Plutonic energy, still. And to me, this is what this is about, power, power, power. Who's got the power?
Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Empowerment versus disempowerment, absolutely, big time.
And rules, limitations, Saturn, and freedom. It looks crazy, it looks weird. I mean, being an astrologer, for goodness sake.
Ruled by Uranus.
That's it. So, you know, if you love it, you can find a way to make it work for you. You may have to do a few odd jobs on the way. You may have to do some odd things. but not to have to be a slave. That mentality, that upbringing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't really like school very much. It was so regulated. Yeah, I liked learning, but I just didn't like the limitation of it. What about you, Pammy?
I was a very obedient, shy student, but I've learned better now.
Obedient again. Yeah, we've learned to be obedient.
But that stopped quite a while ago.
So yeah, I think we're being, we are coming up to this third time of Saturn Uranus. And I think that is something to really think about. Where is that square happening in your chart?
Yeah.
I would be looking at your own chart. What degree is it at, Pammy? You probably know.
I think, let me just check quickly. It's currently, Uranus is at 13.
13, 13,
Saturn's
14.
around 9, but the actual, it will be at 11. The actual final square on the Christmas Eve.
Right on my moon, lovely jubbly.
Yeah, 11.
Right.
Now, don't 11. You dare move again. Don't you dare.
Oh,
don't
God.
You dare.
Don't even talk. What's
so
it activating for you? What's your Scorpio ascendant?
22.
22.
So luckily, I've escaped so far on that. It's the Pluto, Aries stuff that's really sort of kicking my butt at the moment. But no, it's 11 degrees, that final square on Christmas Eve between Saturn and Uranus.
So see if you can find in your own chart where is 11 degrees of
Aquarius and Taurus.
Aquarius and Taurus. All right, so you've either got planets there or you've got planets that are square to it or opposite to it. You'll be surprised. I think there'll be a lot of people who've got some kind of aspect to it. Would you agree?
I just realized it's smack on my north node. The Saturn is on my north. Oh, goodness gracious. But also next October, they become square again at 18 degrees of Aquarius Taurus. It's not exact to the minute, but it's exact to the degree, next October 22.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering if that will be more of us as a collective. I think a lot of us are going through this personally right now. It's a personal bumpety bump. I'm wondering if next year it's as a collective, we're much clearer as to.
I'm sure we will be by then. I'm sure so much will have happened by then. I'm sure we will be.
Yeah. Wow. Pammy, I mean, this is what happens in our conversations, guys. Yeah, we just get carried away until one of us gets too tired. It's usually me because I'm 2 hours ahead, isn't it?
No, but it's always fun.
It's always fun. And I just want you to encourage you to check out Pam's website, which is Pam Gregory.
PamGregory.com. It's going through an upgrade, and that won't be complete probably, I'm hoping, the end of the month. So it's still a little slow and cumbersome, but hey ho, it's in the hands of the website guys. But yeah, that's still rumbling along, and everything is there really.
Fantastic. Well, I think many of your fans are already here, and I hope you've got some new fans now. And I just want to thank Lucy, who's been a trooper in the chat. It's really been coming through very thick and fast, and she's handled it beautifully. Thank you, Lucy. We've also had, I think briefly, Drew was here and maybe still here. And I think also Jimmy, thank you. So we've got quite a team of helpers, and thank you to so many of you who've contributed in so many ways today. And I just hope you've enjoyed this. And I hope, Pammy, that you'll agree to come back again.
Absolutely. And thank you to Lucy, and thank you, Bracha, for all of your brilliant work, your endless live streams, your amazing insights. I mean, you've got the most massive following, I think, of any astrologer out there. So I very much defer to you.
Well, Pammy, I'm at your coattails here, but we're good buddies, and it really, we mustn't compare because we are different and hopefully complementary, which is why it's so much fun to speak with you. And just thank you for taking time today. You're an angel. You're a blessing. I love you, Pammy.
Yeah, you too. Love you lots. Love you lots, Bracha. Have a lovely rest of the evening.